In fighting games, people are always talking about the characters and gameplay, which makes sense. Those are very important, obviously, but I feel there's a third pillar to fighting games that are nearly just as vital, yet get much less recognition. Those being the stages. The visuals and music of a good stage can mold a fighting game experience. The characters can look cool and the gameplay can be high-paced, all-action fun, but if you're just fighting in a silent, endless void, that's not really gonna hit that hard, is it? So to appreciate this underrated aspect of fighting games, I want to start a series ranking every stage from every Mortal Kombat title. And then at the end, I'll mash it all up into one massive ranking. So of course, today we will be beginning with Mortal Kombat from 1992, the first game in the series. It has 7 stages and each and every one is at least a little bit iconic. So we're diving right into the deep end of challenging rankings and controversial opinions. Strap in. Hello my fellow oddities and welcome to every Mortal Kombat 1992 stage ranked from worst to best. Beginning at the number 7 spot, listen, like I just said, every single one of these stages has a solidified spot in the hearts and minds of MK fans. But the one that is the least memorable and that no one is really clamoring to see brought back from this game is the Palace Gates. This is likely the entrance or area leading into the Courtyard stage and overall island. You can see several Buddha-like statues, palace guards, and a nice blue sky with clouds, trees, mountains, and oriental temples in the distant background. It also has these gold flags with a good bit of red to add some needed color, and there are the distinct titular palace gates on either side of the arena. Despite being in last place, this is still a very solid and quite honestly beautiful stage. It's just lacking that key element. Every other stage that we discussed today has something to really latch onto and catch your eye. Even the music, which is notoriously iconic in this game. Seriously, there isn't a single piece of bad OST from MK92, just letting you know that now, you won't find one. It's still the least memorable of the stages, or even just generally in the whole game, including things like the select screen theme. Is it still quite an influential stage? Yes, it has returned a couple times, and generally it's not like anyone's gonna be shocked in the comments like, I never knew this one existed. But just looking at it objectively, it's left the least impact relative to the other stages on today's list. And you will see that, cause the very next stage we'll cover at number 6 is the friggin' Warrior Shrine. Now don't get your pitchforks out because remember, this is MK 1992 we're talking about. All the stages are really good. And this one has left a huge impact on the community despite it actually never returning as a fighting stage other than in Shaolin Monks. Obviously the two most recent examples are in the latest 2 games, MK11 and MK1. MK11 had it in the crypt, and in MK1 it was their shitty little leaderboard thing. I don't know, I haven't even looked at it. But as for the stage itself, the Warrior Shrine displays all the characters in the game as statues, minus Shang Tsung and Reptile because they're not combatants, and also one of either Scorpion or Sub-Zero are missing. We can't tell cause there's no color. Other than that, it has a nice dark night sky background with a full moon and dark shadowy trees. And the actual architecture of the stage itself is cool, but nothing to write home about, mostly being gray with some gates on each side and the same golden red flags from the Palace Gate stage. It's a very awesome stage that desperately needs to come back as a fighting stage in a modern title. Just imagine how much they could update it with today's graphics. Hell, they could make Goro's statue much more worn down than the others because he's the long reigning champion while everyone else are completely new combatants. Unfortunately, I guess that can't really happen because it'd be brought back in the MK1 New Era timeline, which is tragic, but I digress. It is kind of funny to think about them taking the time to sculpt new statues for every combatant every single time there's a new tournament. Especially Sonya, thank God Shang Tsung's plan to lure her in with Kano actually worked, or else you'd get, hey, who's this random woman? Just ignore that, Mr. Cage. Huh. She's quite the hottie, you know. When it comes to OST, it is amazing. 10 out of 10, magnificent. Past the first few seconds of music, you won't find it as memorable as some of the other stages, but I'm just nitpicking there. That's kind of what you have to do with this game stages. And that's kind of the overall consensus I have for the Warrior Shrine. It is very, very nice, but it's just those small margins where I have to place it lower and lower until it just gets to the second to last spot. Not really because of any major criticisms, I just like the other ones more. And the main reason I think is because this one and the Palace Gates do feel a little samey. Now I blame that more on the Palace Gates than I do on this one, because this one actually has a very impactful element to it with the statues. But compared to the stages that really feel unique and have that distinct look to them, this one just falls a little short of those expectations. At number 5, I have the Courtyard. From here on out, all these stages are masterpieces that have been readapted several times, and it is the tiniest little thing separating them. Here I have the Courtyard, which was also in Deception, MK9, and MK11, though that one as a Ruins version. This is obviously meant to be one of the main areas where the fighters battle, with a whole crowd watching on, clapping, gasping, and of course you got the mysterious figure Shang Tsung lurking on his throne in the background. This will always be the very first stage you play on when doing an arcade ladder, so introducing Shang Tsung here, leaving him in your mind for later on when you finally fight, is a great touch. And then you have the 2 guards, the red and green oriental roof in the background, plus these 2 golden dragons. And the OST. It's one of the most iconic themes of the whole series, with the gong sound effect at the beginning. And like I said, this is the first stage that you fight on, so this bit of music is one of your first intros to MK OST. No wonder it stood the test of time. Now the reason this is low, well, low for a list of all amazing stages, of which there's only 7, is only because I think while this arena definitely has a much more distinct look compared to the previous 2, every stage moving forward kind of tackles an entirely different vibe. Like this one still has a few consistent elements with the Palace Gates and Warrior Shrine that make it a little samey. Like yes, they're all on the same island, so they're gonna look the same, but listen, we're talking about the thinnest margins here, and when I think the best stages, I think of ones that really stand out from the pack. But in terms of actual individual aesthetic complaints, I got none. It's perfect, does its job. At number 4, I have the Pit. I can explain. I know people love the Pit, and I want to preface, stage fatalities do not count towards these rankings. That would not be fair. They can't put stage fatalities on every stage, and the ones that don't have them would be at a serious disadvantage, and these videos would be boring. So it is purely aesthetic, visuals, and music. And I think especially as time has gone on and people have associated the Pit more with the Pit 2, that's the version of it that was in MK9, X, 11's Crypt, Scorpion's Revenge, MK 2021, I think that's the version of the Pit people are actually attached to. They forget that the original Pit, while still awesome, was a little more simple, bare bones, and that's not always a bad thing, but in this case I don't think it really holds a candle to the Pit 2. It's just a very basic stone bridge with some statues to each side, the full moon in the background in front of the night sky and the dark clouds. And then there's the giant fall into the Pit of Spikes, but I don't want to talk about that part of it too much because, well, we're gonna discuss it later. It's got a really good dark atmosphere, it's got a little bit of that creepy, off-putting vibe that meshes very well with MK. For some reason when I was younger, I always found that shadowy figure moving across the moon super creepy. I don't know why, I was probably just a weirdo, but still, stuff like that sticks with you. The music on this stage, if I'm being honest, it's not one of my favorites from this game. It's still MK 1992, so it's goated, but I think I'm a bit spoiled from the MK9 version of this theme, which is just much cleaner and has honestly overridden the original in terms of being iconic. There's not really much else to talk about with this stage if I'm refraining from mentioning the stage fatality, which is probably the reason most people love it so much, if we're being honest. I don't think anyone looks at a bridge and goes, "Oh my god, this is revolutionary." Now punching someone off that bridge into a pit of deadly spikes, Now that's an invention. But since we're not talking about that, I think this is a fair place to put the pit, regardless of what emotional reactions some people may have to hearing that. At number 3, I have Shang Tsung's throne room. Okay, I know I've said this like multiple times now, but we are really talking about the thinnest margins from here on out, cause I love this stage. I think this vibrant red version is the best it's ever looked, better than MK9 and the MK11 Crypt. You got Shang Tsung now really front and center, making you go, okay, this guy is really important. The windows to the bright outside shaped like the MK logo, the golden dragons to each side of the bluish green throne. This is one of the main stages that I think of when I think of the color palette MK should have most of the times. Sometimes a darker, grittier tone makes sense, but generally, Mortal Kombat should be very colorful, even in a stage for a villain like Shang Tsung. He's very power hungry, but also has a somewhat proper and formal presentation of himself, and this red and gold regal room is a perfect representation of the aesthetic this character would surround himself in. I also love the giant red pillars with the gold designs on it. I think it's hilarious, they're just kinda in the middle of the room, and I hate that MK9 removed my silliness by putting them way in the back where you can't see them. The music is also really good for like a few seconds, then it just becomes really good, but either way, I'm happy. The only reason this stage isn't higher is because it doesn't tap into a very specific niche that I personally just, I melt when I see it in MK. And the top two just capture that vibe perfectly, and while this one is still very MK, it doesn't hit that personal, specific aesthetic that me, really dig and get a kick out of. I will say it's the most colorful stage of this game, so I heavily appreciate it for that. And the runner-up for the best Mortal Kombat 1992 stage is the pit bottom. I really considered putting this at number 1, but the thing that made me decide against that was how rare this stage is. Because you only fight here when going against Reptile, which is a whole chore to get through, especially if you're at an arcade, you're not going to see it too often. If you compare that to the top spot, which is used plenty and has a really great build-up and narrative around it, I think this one just has to be a spot below. But the pit bottom. We've seen this come back in Shaolin Monks, MK9, MK11's Crypt, and most recently the MK2 movie, where it was very faithfully recreated. This pit bottom is of course the one with the giant wall behind it, which I know is kinda weird looking, but I also kinda like it. I don't know why, it just adds a nice contrast to have this clean wall against these dead bodies and spikes, compared to other versions of it just being rocks and dead people. The usual. But speaking of dead bodies, that is what I love about this stage, the horror of it. This is the niche that I was just talking about in the last entry, and why these top two are the top two. I freaking get going from scary MK arenas. I touched on it earlier with the pit, but that one didn't really lean into the horror, it was kind of just a little off-putting. But going from mostly pretty, clean stages on this island with oriental, colorful architecture, to suddenly spikes with bloody heads, people stabbed onto these spiky pillars above, it's friggin' uncomfortable to look at a little bit. And it also feels dangerous fighting on this stage. Even though there's no hazards or interactables that can actually hurt you, mentally fighting amongst a pit of spikes would have you on edge. It's why I really like the Sonya and Sindel fights in MK2, since it utilizes that wariness. In terms of OST, there's nothing new to talk about, it's just the pit OST again, which is serviceable. And I know I said earlier that its rareness is why it's not number 1, or part of the reason. The top spot is very good in its own right. But there is something to be said about how much you need to do and the reward that comes with fighting on this stage and going against Reptile. It makes it a little special, giving those, ooh, I unlocked a secret vibes. Which, yeah, you did. Congrats. But it's not number 1, because I think the best stage from this game is Goro's lair. Firstly, the OST. Holy crap, genuinely absolute cinema. Let me just play it for you right away. Bump. So good. But yeah, this stage is the most significant in the game. It's where both final battles take place against the titular Goro and Shang Tsung. This one hits that horror niche as with the last one. It's a little less in-your-face horrific look at these dead bodies, but that almost makes it a little more mysterious, like, what happened here? The jagged stone bricks, the bones on the floor, the hung up skeleton, and then of course the glowing yellow eyes hiding in the dark, watching, blinking. It's intentional in its attempt to be horrific while still having some subtlety, and I love it. And the horror is amplified by how well this stage is set up throughout the game. Like I said, this is the final boss area for both Goro and Shang Tsung. Both characters are set up really well. Goro is a bit more mysterious, but you get the build up to Shang Tsung, as I touched on, with the courtyard and the throne room. And then Goro is in the warrior shrine stage, so you do get to be like, who's that guy? And am I fighting? And then you actually get to Goro's lair in an endurance battle right before fighting Goro. You take a look around, seeing the bones and the monsters in the dark, makes your mind race. What caused this? What are those monsters hiding from? Haha, not what, who. You beat your endurance opponents and then you don't even go back to the ladder screen. Goro just pops in, you barely get any time to reset, and you're at it fighting with the Shokan. Every fighting game that I've seen today doesn't do this, setting up their villains through visual storytelling in their arenas, mostly because arcade stages are just completely randomized now. And you know, with how many stages fighting games have now, that's kind of just what has to happen, but man, this game being able to tell its story through its specific set and order of the stages is a really huge loss in pretty much every title that came after this one. Then once you beat Goro, you go against Shang Tsung for the final battle. It's great. Also, if you want to talk about impact, this stage has returned many times. The very next game, MK2, had it as a secret stage, MK4, Shaolin Monks, Armageddon, MK9, which introduced Goro having his own throne, which is cool. And then it most recently appeared in MK11 as both a stage and an area you can explore in the crypt. So yes, because of its dense history, its build-up and context within the game, its visuals, its music, my personal preference with the horror, it is my favorite stage from Mortal Kombat 1992. But which one is your favorite, and which one is your least favorite? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content just like this, and that's wraps on this one, my fellow oddities. I'll see you next time.